What if the people closest to you, the ones you trust the most, are the very ones who betray you? This is the story of Joseph. Jacob loved Joseph more than all his sons, because he was the child of his old age. In Joseph he saw joy, comfort, and hope. So he gave him a special gift, a coat of many colors, bright, beautiful, and impossible to ignore. But what was meant as love became the beginning of jealousy. When his brothers saw the coat, they were filled with anger, not because of the coat itself, but because of what it meant, favor, and they could not speak kindly to him. Then one day, Joseph had a dream that would change everything. He said, "We were in the field, binding sheaves of grain, and suddenly my sheaf stood upright, while yours gathered around and bowed down to mine." Silence fell. Then anger. "Do you really think you will rule over us?" And they hated him even more. But Joseph dreamed again. This time, the dream was even greater. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bowed down to me. Even his father was troubled by this. But deep down, he kept it in his heart, because something about this felt important. Days passed, and one day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers in the fields. Joseph went, not knowing what awaited him, but from far away, his brothers saw him coming, and the moment they saw him, their anger returned, stronger, darker. "Here comes the dreamer," they said. "Let's kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." But one of them, Reuben, stepped forward. "No, let's not take his life." So instead, they took his coat, the very thing that made him different, and they threw him into a pit, deep, empty,
The pit
with
was empty.
no water
There was no
and
water
no
in it.
way out. Joseph cried out, but no one answered, and above him, his brothers sat down and ate as if nothing had happened. Then in the distance, they saw something, a caravan of traders passing by, and in that moment, their hatred turned into something worse. "Prophet, why kill him?" they said, "when we can sell him?" So they pulled him out of the pit, not to save him, but to sell him for 20 pieces of silver. They handed their own brother over to strangers. Joseph cried. He begged, but they turned their backs. And just like that, he was gone, taken far away, into a land he did not know, into Egypt, to cover what they had done. They took his coat and dipped it in blood. Then they brought it back to their father. "Look what we found." And when Jacob saw it, his world shattered. "My son," he believed Joseph had been killed, and he mourned deeply, day after day, refusing to be comforted, because as far as he knew, Joseph was gone forever. But Joseph was not gone. He was alive, carried across the desert, into Egypt, a stranger, alone, far from home, with no idea that his story was only just beginning. Joseph was sold in Egypt to a man named Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. He had lost everything, his home, his family, his freedom, but he did not lose his character. Even in a foreign land, Joseph chose to remain faithful, and the Lord was with him. Everything he did began to prosper. Day by day, he earned trust, until one day, he was placed in charge of everything in Potiphar's house, from a slave to a trusted servant. But life changed again. Temptation came, testing his integrity. Joseph refused, choosing what was right. But doing the right thing came with a cost. He was falsely accused. Lies replaced truth, and before he could defend himself, he was thrown into prison. Once again, everything was taken from him. The position, the trust, the progress, gone. But even there, God was still with him. In the darkness of the prison, Joseph did not give up. He remained faithful, and soon he found favor again. He began to help others, even interpreting their dreams. But after helping them, he was forgotten. Days passed, then months, and still he waited, until one day, Pharaoh himself had troubling dreams, dreams no one could understand. And suddenly, Joseph was remembered. He was brought out of prison, cleaned, prepared, and stood before the king, a prisoner, now standing before power. And once again, God gave him wisdom. Joseph spoke with confidence, explaining what the dreams meant. 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of severe famine. Pharaoh listened carefully, and in that moment, he saw something in Joseph: wisdom, leadership, purpose. So Pharaoh made a decision, one that would change everything. Joseph was made ruler over all Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. From a pit to a prison to a palace, during the years of abundance, Joseph prepared. He stored grain carefully, wisely, knowing what was coming. Then the famine began. The land grew dry. Fields produced nothing. People became desperate. But in Egypt, there was food, and people came from everywhere to survive. Far away, Joseph's own brothers were hungry, so they made the journey to Egypt, not knowing who they were about to meet. When they stood before Joseph, they bowed, just as he had dreamed all those years ago. But they did not recognize him. Joseph recognized them instantly. The same faces, the same voices, the same men who had betrayed him. But he said nothing. Instead, he tested them. Had they changed? Could they be trusted? He asked them to bring their youngest brother, Benjamin. When they returned, Joseph watched carefully, and then everything changed. One of them, Judah, stepped forward, not with pride, but with humility, with sacrifice. He offered himself in place of his brother, and in that moment, Joseph saw the truth. They were no longer the same men, and he could not hold it in anymore. He turned away and wept. Years of pain, of loss, of silence, all came pouring out. Then he faced them and spoke the words they never expected to hear. I am Joseph. Pause. Your brother. Silence filled the room. Fear took over. They could not move. They could not speak. But Joseph did not speak with anger. He spoke with grace. Do not be afraid. What you meant for evil, God meant for good, to save lives. In that moment, forgiveness replaced fear. Joseph had every reason to take revenge, but he chose mercy. He chose purpose. Go back, he said, bring our father and come live in Egypt. So they returned home, carrying news that seemed impossible. Joseph is alive, and he is ruler in Egypt. At first, Jacob could not believe it. After all those years, after all that pain, how could it be true? But hope began to rise again. So he set out with his family on a journey toward Egypt, a journey toward restoration. And then the moment came. After years of loss, years of grief, years of believing would never see him again, Jacob saw his son, and Joseph saw his father. They ran to each other and embraced. Tears fell freely. Pain met healing. Loss met restoration. And love won. What was broken was made whole again. What was lost was found. And what was meant for evil was turned into good. Because sometimes the hardest paths lead to the greatest purpose. And no matter what happens, no matter how dark it seems, your story is not over.
For more interesting Bible stories, like, comment, subscribe, and share.